Well, good morning, everyone. Since I will be leaving today to join Cunard's Queen Anne on a cruise, I should call it voyage because Cunard calls their sailings voyages. I thought that I would say a few words about cruising in general and my own experiences. I know many of you probably have done cruising. There's probably many of you that never did do that. It's something that's very enjoyable. It's a great holiday. What is a ship basically? It's a resort, really, that just happens to move on the water. Of course, there are ships of all sizes, and they have different focuses in what they present. But the whole experience is, I think, for most people, a very pleasant one. And when you go on a cruise, when you pay your fare, it covers most everything really. It's your transportation, your accommodation, your entertainment, and your food. There are very few extras, and most of them are voluntary. Like if you want to take an organized shore excursion, or if you want drinks in the bar or something like that. But other than that, your fare covers everything. Of course, fares vary, depends. Some ships are more upscale than others. But it's a fun thing to do, and I would recommend it to anyone. Now, I have been on many cruises, about 80, I think, by now. And it started actually in the 1970s. That long, yeah. And I'm still 39. I wish. The very first time that I was on a ship was on Cunard's QE2, Queen Elizabeth II. And I had a manager then, and he organized this. It was a crossing from New York to Southampton. It was 5 days or 5.5 days in each direction, and I gave 2 recitals each way. I remember being impressed in the theater, how the curtains were slowly swishing back and forth. But remember, that was my first time doing that, so I had those kinds of impressions. You never know whom you might meet on a cruise, and in the restaurant, I remember it was called the Columbia Restaurant, where I was at the table where I was put. I met a Frenchman who just happened to be the curator of the Gauguin Museum on Tahiti, the Paul Gauguin Museum. And as a result of that, I ended up within the next couple of years going twice to Tahiti to play recitals organized by that museum. So that was my very first time, was on the QE2. I began to write to several ship lines. Up to that, I never really thought of doing, ship concerts. And the next one that I contacted, and the next cruise which came through, was on a ship called the Sagafjord, was with Norwegian America Lines, long defunct now. And it was a Scandinavian cruise. And Suzanne went with me on that one, and we had some stormy weather. Oh yes, once in a rare while, you'll get into some bad weather like that. And I remember the venue for the recitals was towards the front of the ship, was called the Garden Lounge. And, the ship was kind of going up and down and up, and Suzanne could barely, stand and do anything, there. And I think they moved the concert actually to another venue in the middle of the ship. But like I say, once in a while, this sort of thing does happen. So that was the Sagafjord, Norwegian American Line. Much later, that ship went to a company that exists now, a British company called Saga Cruises, and it was renamed the Saga Rose. And I don't know, 6-7 years ago, when I was on the Queen Mary 2 and we were in Barbados, I saw Saga Rose, the former Sagafjord. Boy, that she looked small compared to the Queen Mary and a couple of the other ships there. But that was the one. It was repainted, but it was definitely recognizable. So that was the one that I did the second cruise on. Then in 1977, there was a ship called the Daphne. It was with a company also long defunct, a Greek company called Karras, Karras, and through, I guess some kind of an agent was named X-Printer, I remember. And this was from New Orleans. Suzanne went with me on that one too. We went from New Orleans to Puerto Barrios in Guatemala, went to San Andres Island, went to Cartagena in Colombia, and we went to Montego Bay in Jamaica. It was a smaller ship, and I remember that when we were in Montego Bay, maybe it was because of the light the sunlight on the dazzling white sand there that I got a terrific headache. I remember on that day. I very seldom get them, but I do remember, when we were in Montego Bay on the Daphne. So then after that, I again began to write with some more companies. Royal Viking Line, not to be confused with Viking Cruises that exists now. It's also defunct now, Royal Viking Line. And a couple others, and also to a company called P&O, which I hadn't really heard of before, but they answered me very quickly. They answered me very, very quickly and suggested I get on a ship they had called the Oriana. What I call the old Oriana, because I know they got another one later on, which I also sailed on. But this was the old Oriana, and it was doing a line voyage, which means a repositioning voyage from Australia to Southampton. So they asked me if I was available to get on in Florida, Port Everglades, and do that last part, via the Portuguese island of Madeira to Southampton. Now there was another pianist who was on board who you could say was the main one for that segment. So I was like the additional guest, if you want to call it, and you could say it was my quote tryout, as it were, on that. Well, everything went very well, and I was then offered another cruise in the fall, and so that's how my association began with P&O, which went and still exists to this day. Now P&O is a British company. Americans don't know P&O because they've never really marketed here. It's always been from the UK eastward, not transatlantic. So their ships went down towards Spain, Portugal, then into the Mediterranean, and eventually Egypt, India, always eastward from Britain, not transatlantic. P&O means peninsular and oriental. The peninsula was the Iberian Peninsula, when they originally got the mail contract, and then Oriental was added once they started including Egypt, and then further east. So that's what P&O means. So I got associated with that line, and as I say, it markets to British passengers. Almost 100% of the passengers are British. Very few others, and among the entertainers, the vast majority are also from the UK. So when I started to get cruises on P&O, I was really an exception insofar as where I came from. I mean, I felt like an endangered species sometimes. There wasn't a single other American on board, and I felt fine about that. But that's the way it was. So somehow I got connected with P&O, and it went on and on like that as the years went by. Much later, P&O became part of the Carnival Corporation, which is the largest cruise company in the world. They have a number of ship lines, including, Carnival Cruises, which is their base, Holland America Lines, P&O, and there's two divisions. There's P&O UK and there's P&O Australia. Princess Cruises, let's see, Costa, the Italian Costa line, Seabourn, smaller ships, very upscale and expensive cruises, Cunard, and a company called AIDA, which caters to German-speaking passengers. They're all under the under Carnival. P&O and Cunard later, it became part of the division called Carnival UK, headquartered in Southampton. So that's when I started also to do Cunard Cruises. It was after they both joined Carnival UK, and I began dealing, instead of with the entertainment director just at P&O, now I started to deal with the entertainment director at Carnival UK. So that's how it now expanded into both Cunard and P&O. So, of course, Cunard has a more mixed sort of, passenger, a bigger mix. They're not overwhelmingly British as the ones on P&O are. So it's been, I've continued with these cruises, for just all these years. And my first one, yeah, kind of backtracking slightly. That first one that I did on piano on the Oriana, that was in 1978. That crossing, as I said, where I got on in Port Everglades. That was also, by the way, the beginning, as it turned out as the years went by, the beginning of my long connection with Australia and going there on tours. Because being that it was a repositioning voyage, there were many Australian passengers on board. And after a couple of concerts, so on, I was talking to someone, and someone mentioned about, well, why don't you, consider performing in Australia? I said, well, okay, but I don't have any contacts there. And they told me that there was a company called the Australian Society for Keyboard Music. And they said there were branches in Southport, which is on the Gold Coast, south of Brisbane, in Queensland, in Sydney, and in Adelaide. So I did contact them and got positive responses from all three. And in 1979, I went to Australia for the first time. And as you may know, I've been going there regularly for years and years now. If I estimate, I must have done up till now about close maybe to 400 concerts in Australia, all sorts of places, not just the capital cities, regional towns, outback places, smaller towns. Yes, and I did play in the Sydney Opera House with orchestra. Suzanne was there with me, and we joke sometimes, that when she sang a note in there, and I joke with her, sometimes is floating there somewhere in the darkness, probably with teeth now, and it's got to be some kind of a paranormal thing there. But anyways, that's the point is that it was because I was cruising, and it was on that particular P&O cruise, the Oriana, in 1978, that my connections with Australia started. Now, what I do in these ships, basically, because someone sometimes asks me, "Oh, are you playing every night?" I says, "No. Maybe I give maybe 3 recitals a week, 50-minute programs. So there's tons of time that's my own time, and I can do anything what I want." Now with piano, originally, I remember that even though, of course, I was the classical performer, and I had passenger status, which I still do. I and the lecturers and others actually registered on board through the crew office. It was just, with our documentation, our passport, everything was sort of kept there. So we had access to both the crew and the passenger area. But meaning lecturers or performers like myself, we really were all in the passenger area. Since then, there have been rule changes. There's no longer any connection with the crew area, and I have full passenger status, and it's a little bit different like that. But that's how it used to be, and especially with P&O in the early days. So yes, I give about 3 concerts a week and so on, 50-minute programs, and the rest of the time I do whatever. I attend lectures. I just sit outside in a lounge. I walk around a little bit. I go see a movie. There's enough to do on board. Some people think, oh, my gosh, I'm going to be totally bored. No way, I don't think. You have the ship's paper, which comes out every day, tells you what's on, and that's up to you to choose. Do you want to go and see this or hear that or take part in this? It's your vacation, so you can do that, or you can just sit on a lounge in the sun, and it's up to you. But it's not true that there's nothing to do or you're going to be very bored. So yes, that's what I do when I'm on board like that. About three concerts or so a week. P&O and Cunard are among the extremely few ship companies that have classical concerts as part of their entertainment. And I'm not talking about a string quartet, playing background music in the atrium, but regular classical concerts that are part of the entertainment program. I don't know why the other ships don't have it. Every cruise has 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people on it. Why not offer them something cultural as well as the other entertainment, which is fine, the big shows. You have the cocktail pianists playing, lighter music in the lounges. That's all fine and good. But why not offer, I don't know, whether maybe some algorithm tells some, people in charge of the entertainment department that, too few people will come. I don't believe that for a minute. I don't believe that for a minute. There are always cultural-minded people on board. So I wish more ship lines had it. But fortunately, I've connected with these 2 which have a long history of having classicals. And I remember in the old days of P&O, I was told there were captains and commodores who had a personal interest. And and if a captain or commodore wants something done, boy, it's going to get done. I think that's how it kind of started with P&O originally. Well, good. So that's what I do on board, and I have excellent accommodations, as I say, and total passenger status. The one thing if I say I could make a little complaint about, is that on the vast majority of those ships, there is no designated place to practice. The pianos are all in the public lounges. So, to do any sort of practicing, I get up very early, and go then kind of what I call whisper practice. So sometimes I'm not sure if that lounge is not directly above cabins below me, so I have to do it very quietly. And sometimes I might show up at 6 a.m. and see if I can do something before breakfast. And I said, oh, cripey, there's some passenger has the same idea and they're sitting noodling around, and doing like that. And says, that's the time I need, So sometimes I'll just gently come up to them and say, could I use it, because I have only this little bit of time to practice. But that's about the only time you can do it, And even then, some passenger might come in, it's in 6 a.m. They just want to sit in the lounge. They will look at the sea or whatever. So all the more I have to kind of practice very quietly, except for the Queen Mary 2, where there is a room, actually. It's called the Kensington Room on deck 1. It's a kind of an all-purpose storage room, and crewmen are coming in and out, and I don't care about that. But there is a spinet piano there, and that's where I like to go and practice. But the others, they don't have a designated room. It's only those public lounges, and so that's why I need to be as prepared as possible before the cruise starts, knowing that it's going to be limited practice time. But other than that, like I say, it's a very enjoyable type of thing to do. Some people think it's all I do is just play on cruises. No, it's only part of what I do. The other part, the regular concerts, I call my land concerts. So it's a mixture of both. Backtracking just a little bit, there was a period of time which I now kick myself for, and that was still when I was doing just P&O cruises, about 1984. I decided myself sort of to stop doing that, because I thought to myself, well, it's all nice and fun and all good, but I'm just basically playing for the same people, and to try to advance your career, I'd like to have opportunities somewhere else in the world. So I withdrew from it, but 13 years passed before I came back. I kicked myself now that I had so many years, go back, but that's what happened. And I remember when I wrote to the head of the entertainment office at P&O, it was not the person in charge was not the same one that I dealt with before, but he knew who I was and I knew who he was, because he, in the old days or earlier times, he handled the house bands, the in-house entertainment. Now he became the head of the whole entertainment division. So I didn't hear anything, for a fair while, and suddenly I got this really nice letter from him saying, oh, gee, we didn't realize all this time had gone by. And he said, we must rectify this. And I remember reading that letter and getting warm and fuzzy all over that I hadn't been forgotten, after 13 years. Well, good. So then I was offered another cruise. And I thought to myself, well, it's all new passengers now. It's all new entertainers. And but I was wrong. There was a cabaret singer on board who was still doing it and was there from the old days, who remembered me, and a couple passengers came up to me, and even the cruise director on board remembered me. He wasn't the cruise director 13 years earlier, but he had some other function on the ship, but he did remember. So, and that was 1997. That's when I came back to P&O. It was 1984 to 1997. That was the gap, and now I kick myself. I could have sorted this out for myself much sooner, so, because I've done about 80 cruises by now, about 80. But had I continued, I could have said, well, maybe I've done 120 or something by now. But never mind, it's ancient history. What happened, happened, and what didn't happen, didn't happen. So So every August or so, July, August, the person at Carnival UK who handles Cunard sends out the spreadsheets for the following year's cruises. The whole list of, Cunard has 4 ships right now. Queen Mary 2, that's the flagship, Queen Elizabeth, Queen Victoria, and this newest one, Queen Anne. And so they're listed there, and then we entertainers are asked to, well, what ones could you do? So yeah, I'll go through the sheet. I said, I could do this one, this one, this one, and about a month later or so, then these are divvied out. And then I know what I'll have. Now, there's another person that deals with that on the P&O side of Carnival UK, and those spreadsheets come out a little bit earlier, but at least the last couple of times, they came out around May or so. So same idea. I pick what I am available for, and also maybe a month later or a short while later, I'll find out which ones I'm doing. Like this year, I have 2 Cunard and 2 P&O ones to do. I'm leaving, as I say, today, actually, this late afternoon, from Ohio, to join Queen Anne, Cunard's newest ship, as I had just mentioned earlier, to play 4 recitals on a segment of her current world voyage right now. She's on her world voyage going eastward. Now, a year ago, it was her maiden world voyage going in the other direction. And I was the very first classical performer on Queen Anne a year ago. My segment was from San Francisco via Hawaii to Apia in Western Samoa. That's where I disembarked. And I remember, another thing I should say, that Cunard flies out the entertainers, to wherever you join the ship, which is nice, And so then I was flown Apia, I remember, to Fiji, to Auckland, New Zealand, and back to Los Angeles, and then eventually to Cleveland here, which is the airport I mostly use, only an hour from home. So this is what I'm doing today. I'm flying from Cleveland to on American Airlines to Dallas, Fort Worth, and then I got a long flight, about 13 hours, on Fiji Airways, all the way to Fiji, to Nandi, which is on the western side of the main island, VT Levu. And I've played in Fiji several times in itself, separately, in Nandi. And then on the other side of that island, Suva, S-U-V-A, which is the capital. And there's a very short flight, I think 20 minutes or so. And in Suva, I will be joining the ship. So we're sailing eastward, going to stop in Hawaii, in Honolulu again, and then Los Angeles, where I will get off. I have, as I say, 3 other cruises to do. I'm on P&O's Aurora in mid-May. It's from Southampton to Malta, the Mediterranean island of Malta, and we'll go via La Coruña in Spain, Oporto in Portugal, and Tangier in Morocco. And that's in between, because I have concerts in Britain around that time anyways. But that's on P&O's Aurora. In late July, I'll have a cruise on Cunard's Queen Elizabeth, Alaskan cruise from Seattle. We did an Alaskan cruise a year ago. It was from Vancouver, and Suzanne went along. It was her first time in Alaska. And so I think she enjoyed it, and I'm going to take her again. So she's going to see parts of Alaska again. We're going to go, and it's going to be right after the day after our granddaughter, our older granddaughter, is getting married. In fact, I had to move the cruise because I was originally scheduled to do it a little bit earlier in July, but it overlapped the date of her wedding. But I didn't know that because I thought the wedding was going to be in early 2027. So I already had the cruise fixed. Well, fortunately, I was able to change it. Someone switched with me. So I'm doing the next one, July 20 to 30. So it's right after her wedding, which is on the 18th. So that's the last one. Then I have another P&O cruise to do on Arcadia. Which will be from October 25th from Southampton, again via La Coruña in Spain, to Madeira, the Portuguese island Madeira, which arrives on November 1st, my birthday. So I think I'm going to spend maybe another extra day or two on Madeira, which is a lovely island, where I played once in the main theater, but I've been on a number of cruises there because Madeira is a popular port of call and vacation thing for British tourists. So P&O ships will often call there. In fact, long ago, twice, I, on board a P&O ship, saw a spectacular fireworks show on New Year's Eve. You know, there were other ships in the harbor, and boy, was it a spectacle, you know, at Funchal, the capital city of Madeira. So these are what I have coming up this year. I go back the furthest now of any entertainer in any category for Cunard and P&O, because as I said at the beginning of my talk, I started in the 1970s. There's nobody entertaining today, whether you're a comedian, cabaret singer, magician, classical performer, who did it as a, you know, back in the 1970s. And I'm still doing it. And as I said earlier, I'm still 39 years old. Well, delusions, whatever. But so in May or so, I'll probably know. I'll get the spreadsheets for next year's P&O cruises, and then in the summer, you know, for the Cunard ones. So, like I say, I've done about 80 cruises. There were a couple, in addition to the ones I planned. I took Suzanne on a couple of cruises where we went just as passengers. There were areas that I wanted to show her. We were on the Caribbean Princess, on the what's the other one? I just forgot the name of the other. And 2 princess ships, and then we went on the Carnival Dream and the Carnival Miracle down the Mexican West Coast. And I took Sana, our daughter, on a cruise on the Carnival Sunshine, which for a short while used to be the largest cruise ship in the world under a different name. I think it was called the Carnival Destiny at that time. So we were just passengers, you know. Otherwise, the vast majority of cruises for me have been where I'm playing. So like I say, I'm pretty much all packed, leaving later today. Got these long flights to do, and to get on Queen Anne on the eastward segment of her current world voyage. So I hope you enjoyed my little bit of rambling here, but I wanted to tell you what a positive experience cruising is. So if you've done it, then you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't done it, you know, plan to do it. You know, put on your bucket list. You know, as they say, when there is a will, there's a way. You do a short one if you want to just try it out. You know, do a short one. But there's so many repeat cruises, and there's a huge number of people who've never cruised. I saw some statistic, so it's only 10%, if that, have ever cruised. So the cruising business is doing very well, and ship companies are all, you know, bringing new ships. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed what I was doing, and the next thing I'll put on the channel will probably be some performance, but it'll be after the cruise. I'll be back on Easter Sunday, actually, April 5th, for this particular cruise. So have a good day and enjoy whatever you're doing.